We are all African children, the sons and daughters of the soil of this incredible continent, which has and continues to see so much pain and suffering, and still holds the world's greatest treasures, you and me. So happy day of the African child, my brethren and sistren. There is much work to be done. We need to get our house in order, really work towards a better tomorrow. So let's get to dissecting the matters of the day in this 17th episode of It's a Wrap, your news served with a dash of moi. Poor President Gebhardt. The skeletons are just toppling out of the closets faster than he can shut them. It's the SME bank saga this side, Gadenambo that side. Nay, man. This, our dear president, has thus far been the most accessible and the most accountable president this country has ever known. And it seems all this transparency has the nation seething. It's as if our eyes have only just opened to the gravity of corruption that has occurred right under our noses and brought us to the sorry strait after 27 years. One of Namibia's best loved, and in my opinion not lauded enough struggle icons, Andimba Toivo ya Toivo, passed on last weekend.
His death is a great loss to the people of Namibia.
Comrade Andimba Toivo ya Toivo is no more. On behalf of the Namibian government and on my own behalf, I wish to express our collective sorrow to the bereaved family. Their loss is not only felt by the family alone, but by us all as a country as well. May Comrade Andimba's soul rest in eternal peace.
The nation started mourning and shared their condolences on various social media platforms, with many even changing their profile pictures to pictures of him. And the president even announced that he would be buried at Heroes Acre. I was perplexed when I saw that flags at most government buildings were not flying at half-mast, as I assume protocol dictates. However, we were told that the president must first declare a period of mourning and instruct government officers to fly their flags at half-mast. I started mourning immediately, right there and then, when I heard the terrible news of the passing of Andimba Toivo ya Toivo, a man who was loved by so many. I guess I just caught feelings because of the lack of protocol around these things. In my mind, hero dies, nation mourns, flags go half-mast, period.
Then I met him many years later, in exile this time, as I was a representative of SWAPO in the Caribbean and Latin America, and he came to visit Cuba. So he was to us an inspiration. Up until that time, before he was sentenced in Pretoria, he made a historic announcement or proclamation to the South African court, among others, where he said, I know that the struggle will be long and bitter, but I also know that my people will carry over on that struggle to the bitter end. So that words were inspirational to us freedom fighters and to every Namibian patriot.
The last time I met him he was sitting alone on a bench at the banks of the Okavango River. And I asked if I could join him, and he said, yeah, sure. And I asked if I could ask him a few questions, and he said, absolutely, sure. So I asked him, that's a question that many people in Namibia want to know. Why were you not the first president of Namibia? And he, without any hesitation, with a total normal, natural voice said, because I was never hungry for power. And that is one of the strongest statements I've ever heard in my life. And it put him, for me personally, on the same level as Nelson Mandela or Muhammad Ali. It changed my life.
Let's see what's been eating Dudley's grape this week. So I emailed the presidential spokesperson, Albertus Algemoop, to ask him when the national days of mourning would begin and why the flags weren't half-mast as yet. All I got? Crickets. There are rifts the size of canyons being reported within the SWAPO leadership, and the government under the leadership of President Hage Geingob is being blamed for everything, from the country's debt crisis to poor service delivery. This dear child of Africa is up to her ears in debt, discontent and drama, and she's making sure she's heard. The nation is tired of politicians enriching themselves to the detriment of society, and for a country with a little more than 2 million residents, we should be doing better. Much better. So suddenly, random reports, written rather well I might add, keep popping up about high-ranking SWAPO members' meetings, and although their contents are rather juicy, one must wonder why no one is willing to put their names and faces to these elaborate texts. One such creatively written piece crossed my eye and claimed that the outspoken Kadenambo fired verbal missiles at President Geingob on a variety of issues, including genocide and the SWAPO presidency, which sources apparently say is a hotly debated issue introduced by former Minister Isaac Katali. Let's sip on this here tea. And the people said, Brendan simply posted, "It's getting hot," whilst Leonard added, "That's democracy, and they must not think that they can run our party as their properties." Jason posted, "Kathanambo is a failure himself. Also, when he was a minister, what did he do? Talk too much. This genocide issue was supposed to be solved during Dr. Sam and the former President Hifikepunye Pohamba. All they did is tell people empty promises. If we can be realistic with this, they should all be blamed for that." Last week, there were reports that the Founding Fathers' house, being built at our expense, was abandoned by the builders due to non-payment. Check this out. Investigative journalist John Grobler posted, "Not only does Sam Nujoma get a very generous pension, but we also pay his full former presidential tax-free salary, which was raised recently. All living expenses, including an army of servants and secretaries, all travel and medical expenses, all security, and above all expenses related to the completely unconstitutional of the founding president. We also built Hifikepunye Pohamba house in Kleine Kuppe of 35 million that he does not even live in, and all expenses as with Nujoma, but thankfully not an office for the second president. The psycho fancy by which we treat men with feet of clay is just sickening. Nujoma has private homes on his farm, Henties Bay, Walfish Bay, Atetunda, and Okahao. Time he learns to pay for his own keep. 50 years of cult-like status in SWAPO has clearly addled his sense of clarity." Meanwhile, in our debt-ridden country in which our leaders have managed to squander gazillions of dollars of taxpayers' money, with millions lost at the GIPF, the SME Bank, the Social Security Commission, etc., still unaccounted for. Ferre posted, "The main problem with the ruling party is that they are looking for someone who can unite the party, not someone that can move the country forward. And it's all evident. SWAPO got stronger and the country is on its knees." And yet we were able to spend another 1.9 billion on the business ambitions of veterans. And 800,000 Namibians are reportedly living in debt, dabbling in virtual reality. Here's what Cecilia had to say.
Wow, 800,000 people living on debt. How do these people live on debt? So the way they are driving expensive cars, nice houses, nice flats.
We're celebrating the African child, right? The It's a Rap crew spoke to some of them.
It's such a privilege to be an African child, just to know that people like Hector Peterson died for my rights and all that. I'm living in a free Namibia, enjoying all my rights.
I might just become the next president and help us future Africans.
Happy African Child's Day!
Being an African child has been such a big experience for me because no one has the advantages that we have in our country.
Our Africa is full with the greenest natural features, and it has the beautiful mountains and everything.
It's just great being an African, and I think people should respect being an African. Be proud of where you come from.
Be proud of your nation.
One Africa, one nation.
We also spoke to RDP member and social activist Monica Nambelela about the state of the nation's children.
Our leaders are focusing on the moment instead of investing on the future. If you look, no matter where you are in Africa, the presidential palaces are always bigger than the educational institutions. We need more vocational training, and we need a democratic setup so that we can do all we can to protect the African child, because the African child is vulnerable to poverty. The African child is vulnerable to disease, is vulnerable to diseases, and the African child is more likely to get married at a young age and not reach her fullest potential.
Nampal Commissioner Edwin Kangwachivi also shared his sentiments on how we should treat our children.
When you are a parent, you also have a responsibility to look after your minor children. Now what you hear is that a minor was left in the care of a cattle herder from one of our neighboring country. He raped the child and then he absconded, crossing the border into another country, which is difficult to actually apprehend and bring that person to book. So we as parents, at some another point, we have to be called to order and be accountable for our actions, because that is also, apart from the criminal act of rape, the parents should also be charged with neglect, or the act of child drowning in a tombo jar. If you know you have a 3-year-old toddler who has the possibility of falling into this bucket, why don't you seal the bucket with a lid that she cannot, or he or she cannot open? So somehow, somebody at some point would probably be charged with child neglect.
Last week, we reported on Marshall Ranger Sean Nodier, who expressed his disappointment in the way that the Ministry of Gender Equality and Child Welfare dealt with the removal of his daughter, Jessie Moonchild, from his home on a Friday night following allegations of abuse. We bring you the latest update.
I'm sitting here right now with some of the street kids I've been working with. Me and Jessie Moonchild have been working with for over a year. And they have no accommodation, they have no facilities, they have no soap, they have no food, they have no clothes, okay? But yet, they can find it good enough to come and take away Jessie Moonchild, who has a home, who has food, she has a loving place. And when I went to the Woman and Child Center in Karatura to give off some clothing for my daughter, they actually turned around to me and said, no, the Ministry of Gender and Gender-Based Quality and Child Welfare has to deal with these kids. But my child has been taken care of by a privately funded NGO social workers, yet the complaints or allegations against me were given to the Ministry of Gender Equality and Child Welfare, which then subcontracted sort of, or gave it over to these NGO private social workers, and my daughter is given private accommodation, or they have like these non-profit places where it's called safe houses apparently, and she obviously, because she only left in her pajamas, is getting food, she's getting clothing, she's getting everything given to her and schooling and everything. But these poor children, who I've been appealing to the government for years now, actually I've been working for 17 years with street kids, I get told no, the ministry must deal with them. Today is the day of the African child, okay? And these are African children, and even though my daughter is a Caucasian child, she is also an African child, born in Namibia. But I want to ask, why is there a discrimination between my child who's white, okay, and these children that are non-whites? This is an unfair treatment, and why are the private institutions and NGOs not assisting these children?
The owner of Frank's Guest House in Windhoek North hails from Congo, an African child who had dreams of a better future for his family. But he's received a barrage of negative press involving his business recently, with some reports even stating that he was running a brothel there.
There's an outcry from the neighborhood. It's a residential area, and if you go after hours, you can even see prostitutes on the street. And what he really needs to do is to live to the rule of law. He should obey the law. Much is still coming if he continue with that way. He should really stop those type of activities and destroying the neighborhood.
The owner strongly condemns the claims made against his establishment and wants to put the record straight.
That place, I bought that property in 2000. It's going to 17 years now, that property. Up to now, I never record any serious case there. I never record any crime. I never record any injury or someone he lose arm or something damage for him in Frankston. It's the news only. Only people are talking. And I know the people are talking. It's some neighbor, you know, we as black people. When somebody come up with a dream to do something around you, develop from that dream. When my dream finish, pick up a bit to try to do something, and you go ahead for your life.
Russia Day was celebrated at a local hotel this week, and the It's a Rap crew asked guests to express themselves on the Day of the African Child.
June 16, the Day of the African Child is of great African historical significance. You may recall the events in Soweto when the children of South Africa were mown down by South African authorities, South African occupationist forces in South Africa. So the African Child is the most important, significant event which we must honor, respect, and continue to observe, because it brings great significance to Africa.
We are very glad that the African Child has a day like that, a day of protest, but a day of constructing a new Africa for the African child. Not a day where people will fight about languages, but where people will listen to the voice of the African child, what they want to say, what they're actually saying, so that we as adults will listen to them.
My message to the children on the Day of the African Child is to be active citizens, is to be positive about their futures, about their own abilities, and to give the best of themselves to their country and to their community each and every day.
Children need assurance of security from parents, from the environment around them, from the environment in which they play, from the environment in which they learn, from the environment in which they live, that indeed they are secure to grow into vital citizens of the world.
The Paralympics took place in September last year in Rio? Well, the Paralympians were finally received by the president just a few weeks ago. Check this out.
The State House actually accorded a visit for our athletes to be at the State House. Doesn't matter how long it took, unfortunately, it took a bit of a while, but for us what is important and what was important for the athletes is still just to be recognized in Namibia and to be, and finally to be given a chance to present their medal. And definitely we were very, very welcome at the State House. And it took some time for us to, but at least they welcome us to present those medals.
Sometimes it's discouraging people, like when you are pushing like this, we have to keep the history. We wanted, like, especially when the encouragement that I got in London, from London 2012, when Joanna Besson, with the way she was treated, it's really good thing. And then from there, we pull up our socks, and then so that you can say, no matter what, you have to also to bring the gold, so that you can bring the change. One day we find ourselves having named even after the street or something like that.
Finally, we went there, and we are happy, We just went to see the president, and then we are not really complaining or try to change something, but I hope next time they will be fast on us.
Some of different companies now in Namibia, they are not really understanding the importance of athletics, so most of them are not really investing in the athletic, so they were actually used to struggling a lot, so that you can looking for even the sponsorship or to buy even the equipment that you can able to use. Even imagine now we are in the capital city, but so far we can just find one track.
The government might just improve on the facilities, especially on the training grounds. Because as you can see here, we are just traveling on the gravel road, and then some of us, we are the Olympic champions or the world champion. It's improving with time. Yeah, it's much better to compare to other countries in Africa.
Check out these events you might want to attend in this week's calendar. Here are a few more Day of the African Child messages for you.
Думаю, поставить себе цель в жизни и идти к ней, несмотря на преграды.
The Day of the African Child is very important because we truly just need to remember who we are on this beautiful continent, Mother Africa, and remind ourselves to be like the late and great hero of Namibia, Andima Toivoya Toivo, to be mighty but to be humble.
Work hard, go to universities, have all the opportunities. I would be happy that all the Africans would have all the opportunities to have education.
Children doesn't belong to any nation or any continent. Children is children. They are the most innocent creatures in the world. I can wish to the children of the world, of Mother Earth, happiness, peace and joyful life.
This is only from Project of Personal. I would just like to give a message out to the African kids saying that they should stay in school, study hard and always respect the elders as well.
Russia will continue its support for an African child so that the African youth have a fair share in the future of this world.
They say it takes a village to raise a child, and living in a global village, this African child has far to go. Stay woke, Namibia. It's a wrap.